Hello, this is Tony. I'm back. Okay, we are on the first full day of the Beatles' trip to the United States. It's February the 8th, 1964. We already covered the morning in part 9, so this is the second part of the day. And if you hear any weird noises besides the birds, it's my dog. Okay. I wanted to do this real quick. Hundreds, if not thousands, of books have been published about the Beatles. The first was Michael Braun's Love Me Do, a 1964 account which followed the group on tour. And this was John Lennon's favorite book about the Beatles, as per his 1970 interview with Rolling Stone magazine. And that's my copy. It's beaten up. Okay, so earlier in the day, their full day in New York, George was sick, and I think it was strep throat, and he was ordered to stay in bed. So the other three guys, John, Paul, and Ringo, had to go around doing photo shoots and so forth without him. But in the afternoon, he did show up to rehearse for the Ed Sullivan show. Ed Sullivan had been panicking, saying, "I'll wear a wig myself if I have to." And this was the set that they were going to be playing on. You might remember it if you saw it back in the day. So they finished practicing, and then they got in the car. They went to the Savoy Plaza Hotel, which is no longer there anymore. And this book says that somebody showed up with a guitar, and George paid $900 for a 12-string Rickenbacker 360 12 string. But everything else I find on the internet says that this 360 12 was first offered to John and then John suggested that George might like it because George wasn't there. Everything else on the internet says George wasn't there. He was sick in bed. And the other Fab Four brought him the guitar to look at, and he loved it. He used it for I Should Have Known Better. With a girl like you, I call your name. And also, Bram, it's been a hard day's night, and I've been working like a dog. And he pulled this guitar that he got in 1964 on that tour, out in 87 for his solo album, Cloud 9. Fish on the Sand was the name of the track. So there seems to be a little discrepancy on how he got that guitar, and I don't think we'll ever know. All right, let's run over his guitars. He had a 63 Gretsch Tennessee and hollow body electric, a 63 Rickenbacker 360 12 strings thin line electric, and a 63 Gretsch Country Gentleman electric used as a backup. You guitar guys will know what that all means. I know you people. Anyways, whether George was at the Savoy Plaza or not, the other guys were, and they were causing a disturbance in the lobby. There was a wedding going on, and the bridesmaids' dresses looked like this. They were red velvet and tulle. And the manager said, "Get out of here. You're causing too much of a disturbance." So Capitol Records loaded them up in a limousine and took them for a ride around New York, around Manhattan, and they got to see lots of sights. And as they passed the United Nations building, George said that the flagpoles would be good to hang sweatshirts on. Okay. And then they took them to a very famous club, the 21 Club, often simply called the 21, was had traditional American cuisine, and it was a former Prohibition era speakeasy. And all of the presidents of the United States and famous movie stars had been there, and the Beatles. And here's the outside of it. It is no more, unfortunately. And you can read this if you want. It was rated during Prohibition in the 1930s when alcohol was illegal in the United States. And it survived that. And it was around until, I can't remember. I looked it up. I don't remember when they closed the doors. But I love to look at these doors and everything and think, oh, the Beatles saw this when they were so young. I mean, when you think that just 6 months earlier, so they were still playing in the cavern. And Ringo, he asks for a vintage Coca-Cola. I think he meant the kind with, but no doubt at that time he was only joking. Incidentally, they had pork chops while they were in there. After they were finished eating their meal, they went back to the Plaza Hotel where John, George, and Ringo stayed in their suite to watch television. But Paul went across Fifth Avenue to the Playboy Club.
Oh my gosh!
Yes, indeed. It doesn't say what he did there, but it does say that he met a nice couple that he must have been chatting with, and one of the bunnies that he might have fancied a little bit. Of course, there was no time for anything. These bunnies do not look happy. They do not look happy. Look at them. So the old Playboy Club had opened in the winter of '62 at East 59th Street and 5th Avenue, catering to the wealthy, cocktail-sipping admen of Madison Avenue. Hugh Hefner had clubs all over the world at the time. They started in Chicago, actually. The old club had opened in the winter of '62, catering to the wealthy, cocktail-sipping men of Madison Avenue. But, I look at these pictures and I think how glamorous everything was in those days.
Wow!
My parents were very social people and they'd get all, look beautiful and go out maybe to the Playboy Club too. And so Paul and an off-duty Playboy bunny and that couple that Paul had met said, let's go to the Chateau Madrid, which was extremely famous. Look how beautiful it is. Inside the Chateau Madrid was owner Danny Angel Lopez, and he introduced Paul to the musical director of the orchestra playing there, who is called Angel Riera, and they were a very famous orchestra called Chavales de España. And so Angel Riera chatted with Paul about what they thought of New York City and that, and apparently this Angel used to, work in Cuba before it was taken over by Castro and everything. And they no doubt had a lot in common because of the music. And this is the band, Los Chavales de España, with Mr. Riera. And I found a little thing here on it, Los Chavales de España, the Kids from Spain, is an 11-member group. And between the 11 members, they played 26 instruments. I'm sure Paul was really, really enthralled with speaking to such a man with such a rich musical background, having been around since the 40s. And Mr. Riera, being from Barcelona, España, he couldn't quite place Paul's accent. And he asked him, are you from Germany? I can't place your accent. He thought maybe Paul was German. I'm sure Paul told him about Hamburg. But no, he wasn't German. Oh, I wonder what Paul thought of that one. That Liverpudlian accent. I love it. I love it. Scouse. Any Scousers out there? Put a comment. So now, Paul has to come home and John, Paul, George, and Ringo have to get some sleep because tomorrow, mañana, is all about the Ed Sullivan Show. So my next video is going to be all about the big debut on national television in the United States, with a viewing of 73 million people watching, the biggest viewership of any television program up to that time, and it held the record for a long time. So if you like this video, I did it. It took me a long time to make it look pretty. So please like, subscribe, and share with a Beatle friend if you'd like. All you need is love. Ba, 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 da, da. All you need is love. Love. Love is all you need. How would you sleep if you had to be on the Ed Sullivan Show the next night? Especially poor George, who was really not well at all. So it's been fun following them around the first few days of their tour in the U.S. And we started off here in New York City. This is in Central Park. And I put some little collages together with the pictures. Poor George was sick. You know, he had to do what he had to do, but I'm sure he would have rather been in bed. I do know, though, because I'm a performer, when you get out there, the adrenaline takes over. Do you know what I mean? That adrenaline takes over, and you can pull it off. A couple of times I couldn't, but most of the time, vast majority of the time I could, and I've done thousands and thousands of shows. And then they went out to eat, remember, at that 21 Club? Those funny statues on top of the place. All those really classy places in those days. The Playboy Club was actually considered really classy at one time. Might have been a little risque for some, but it wasn't overly so in those days. And then they went to the Chateau Madrid, remember? Or Paul did, rather. I'm sorry. Paul went to the Chateau Madrid and the Playboy Club. And Paul met the band leader of Los Chavales de España. And his name was Mr. Riera, Angel Riera. And he thought that he was German. Paul was German. I like that. I don't know why I think that's so funny. It's because the Liverpudlians have such a unique way of speaking. They call it scouse. It's affectionately known as scouse. Oh, I can't wait to look at our chapter on the day that they actually do the Ed Sullivan Show, the 9th of February. It'll be so much fun. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope that you join me for my next video. Bye. Tony, over and out.